latest in litigation against Illinois' gun ban. Here we are on January 2nd, and that January 1st deadline kicking in for people to register banned firearms. We'll get the latest numbers from Illinois State Police at some point this week, possibly even later on today. But the numbers, as was reported last week, 15,100 individuals registering, and we're sitting at about 0.63% of FOID card holders who have registered. And some flipping those numbers saying that it's actually 99.4% have not complied. So an interesting review of those numbers. But all the lawsuits that there are against the state's gun ban, we've seen it go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court with them not willing to intervene in the case while the case is still progressing. But you've got multiple cases across the states that have been filed in federal courts, and some are looking to get a hearing here very soon. We, of course, on Friday, talked with Illinois State Rifle Association Executive Director Richard Pearson, who, if you missed that interview, you can find it on my YouTube channel. Just search Bishop on Air and you'll be able to find the videos. But he talked about a case that they're wanting to get heard, and that is to allow for individuals to register. Those individuals who, during what some called Freedom Week, when Judge Stephen McGlynn issued that preliminary injunction holding enforcement of the law at bay, people went out and purchased firearms, and those individuals, after the injunction was essentially put on hold by the appeals court, those individuals wanted to possibly register those firearms they purchased, but state police said that they couldn't register those firearms because it was after the January 10th, 2023 enactment of the prohibition of the sale and possession of certain semi-automatic firearms. So that case, even though it was filed in Will County, does not have a status hearing until April. So we'll be watching that state level case, but we've got the cases in federal court in front of Judge Stephen McGlynn that's going to have a hearing here soon. A status hearing is going to be set in the very near future. Let's go ahead and take a look at the docket for the Barnett case, where you've got some action happening late last week. Now, the week before, you had an order from Judge Stephen McGlynn essentially laying out that they wanted a status hearing on January 4th. All right, so that's just 2 days away. But you have others, including the state, looking to possibly have a scheduled conference on January 5th or the 8th through the 12th. So in order to have the status hearing on the 4th from Stephen McGlynn, and then that same day, the request to have the hearing on either January 5th or sometime between the 8th and the 12th. But then you had the Barnett plaintiffs in the case actually request that the status hearing be sometime between the 8th and the 12th. And ultimately, they say in their filing that counsel for Barnett plaintiffs are unavailable on January 4th, and they have a wide availability the week of January 8th. So that's next week. So they're actually motioning that they have the case status hearing set for January 8th through the 12th. But if you look at the docket, we have yet to see whether Judge McGlynn is going to grant that move of the date, because he already ordered the January 4th date. So that's still up in the air as to whether the motions from the state and also from the Barnett plaintiffs will be granted to have that new date moved sometime in the second week of January. So we'll be watching this closely as well. Something else, too, that's also on the horizon here, and I got to connect with attorney Thomas DeVore about the challenges that he has in state court, because apparently this week there's going to be a status hearing for those cases. And if you recall, he was able to secure temporary restraining orders for thousands of people and dozens of gun stores, where you have the temporary restraining orders that were in effect for a good chunk of last year before the separate case from Dan Calkins went to the Illinois Supreme Court. And the Illinois Supreme Court, with all of the storylines that were there about motions to recuse and the $1 million that Governor J.B. Pritzker gave to two candidates for the Illinois Supreme Court, regardless, the Illinois Supreme Court ruled against Calkins, and that triggered having the DeVore cases vacated, essentially. So DeVore's going back to try to get those cases reinstated, and that's something that's going to be happening this week as well. We'll definitely be watching that closely, and maybe we can connect with attorney DeVore at some point. But the latest in status against the state's gun ban and all the lawsuits there are, things are still very much moving. But one thing that's important to note is this is all now going to be shifting to the merits of the law. And that's what we're seeing with the Southern District of Illinois case, where Judge Stephen McGlynn ordered that January 4th status hearing in the case that attorney Thomas Magg brought forward. Because Magg, he had 3 different major arguments that he filed initially in state court that were transferred to federal court. You had the Second Amendment issue that went in on a preliminary basis up to the appeals court, and the appeals court, essentially said no, the state is likely to succeed on the merits. What does that mean? Well, it means let's go back and tackle the merits. So attorney Magg in the Southern District brought forward the vagueness arguments, the second of the 3 arguments that he brought forward. They heard that in October, and then weeks later, McGlynn denied that motion for partial summary judgment on the merits of the case in the registry being too vague. And even McGlynn saying in a separate case brought by federal firearms licensees of Illinois, saying that the rules aren't unconstitutionally vague, they're clear, Second Amendment issues aside. And then he went on to talk about how they're going to move forward with the merits of these cases. And now we have attorney Magg pushing for the Fifth Amendment issue, essentially saying that people have a right to not incriminate themselves. So fascinating to see that play out as well here in the new year. But all of this coming after the January 1st deadline. And we've got sanctuary Second Amendment counties across the state. Whether or not this is going to be prosecuted in those counties, that's something people are looking at, as well as in places like Cook County or maybe in Lake County, where you've got prosecutors who may very well want to try to prosecute those who are found without registering their banned firearms. So we'll be watching all of this closely. A lot of different facets, but hopefully I'm able to boil this down for you in a comprehensive manner that can really give you guys a better understanding of where we're at in this whole process here in the state of Illinois. So again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's amazing to see 400 plus people watching live on the various streams. That's incredible, and I greatly appreciate that. If you want to support the program, you could do so simply by liking and subscribing and hitting that notification bell and sharing this with your friends and on your various social channels, or you can support the program by buying some merchandise and just click that link below the YouTube channel, or go to bishoponair.com and you can support the show that way. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow with more information, and I'll try to connect with attorney Thomas DeVore to get his take on where we're at with the ongoing registration scheme and his lawsuits, looking to possibly block that the law for his plaintiffs. So a lot more things to come. All right, different dates for different lawsuits, and also we've got the state legislature that's going to be coming back in the middle of the month, and you've got the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that are going to expected to take up the second notice rules for the gun ban registry, which that's another wrinkle in this whole storyline, is the rules for that registry weren't finalized before January 1st kicked in. So the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, they're not going to come back until the 16th of this month to possibly take up those second notice rules, which seems to try to address a lot of the questions that were brought up during recent hearings, but we'll see. All right, guys, have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Happy New Year to you and yours. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out with me each and every weekday morning. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning here with Bishop on Air.